he is not a captain of a boat. He is a captain, and he flies. I'm gonna say jets. It's not an airplane, right? What's the difference
Yeah,
between an airplane
yeah,
and a jet?
that's the
Explain.
same thing. Just airplanes have different modes of propulsion. So either we have propellers or jet engines, turbine engines. So
Gotcha. That's
yeah.
cool. So you know, the first time I was ever on a plane, or well, the first time I was on a plane, it was like a 4-seater airplane at a Sky
Hmm.
King Airport in Terre Haute. I don't know if you've ever flown into Sky King. Have you flown into Sky King?
I have, yeah.
All right. So, what is like the biggest plane you've flown into Sky King?
Oh, geez. I've flown a multi-engine airplane, a small general aviation airplane into Sky King, which was one of their trainers there.
Yeah.
And that was pretty sketchy because I was learning to fly it. It was my first lesson there in that plane. And we landed on their shortest runway, which is like, I think 1,900 feet long.
Is that their north to south
It
runway?
is, yeah. The one that like has 80-foot trees at one end and then an open cornfield on the other
Yeah.
with power lines.
So, can you explain what the approach to the landing is at Sky King Airport with the power lines right there? Because I had a friend, he's quite a bit older, and he was telling me he would train at Sky King Airport, and then one time he went
Hmm.
out to Terre Haute Regional, and he did the same type of approach and landing at Terre Haute Regional, and he was like he scared the crap out of the instructor because like the way he came down. He's like, "Why did you like swoop down?" Like, I'm not gonna get super technical with the terms, but he was like,
Yeah.
"Why did you like come down with that approach?" And he explained that he did that at Sky King.
Yeah. So typically we want to maintain a constant descent angle all the way into landing. That's pretty typical, but whenever you're landing in an airfield that has obstacles at either end, sometimes you may have to stay a little higher than normal to avoid those obstacles. And then once you cross those, then that's when the action starts to happen. You've got to reduce your power, lower your angle of attack, descend a little quicker. And at Sky King in particular, landing on a 1,900-foot runway, you don't have much room to stop. So you've got to touch down
Yeah.
on the numbers and start getting on the brakes. Otherwise, you're in the cornfield. So
Wow.
uh, yeah. Now, when you're at regional, it's a little different because you have a 9,000-foot runway. There's not a lot of trees, and
Yeah,
so
it's pretty open.
it is, yeah. So for someone to swoop in and do that, it could be unusual and catch you off guard if you're not ready for it. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that so like have you seen the house around Sky King Airport where the plane just like crashed into the house?
oh yeah, yeah, I did see that.
How
That was uh that was interesting.
do you know anything like more specific about that? Like I think it was two older men. I don't know if both. I think maybe one guy survived. If not, I think they both end up passing away, like with all the injuries that they had. And I don't know. It was just
Yeah,
like a freak thing. It was right behind Fox's
it
Market right
is.
there.
It's right behind Fox's, which they have some of the best sandwiches, I might add. Um, but
Sure.
yeah, so that accident, it is a tragedy anytime there's an accident in the aviation community, whether it's
Yeah.
general aviation or a major airline. Um, but I was flight instructing that day, and some of my friends were out at Sky King flight instructing as well, and I heard about it. So I called them just to make sure it wasn't them. Of course, it wasn't, but um, I don't know the details, like the names, whether or not they passed away or whatever. But
Yeah.
that um, that accident where during the landing phase is a most common fatality um, incident. So basically, when you're turning from base to final, which is part of the landing segments. Final segment is just your straight in. So base to final, a lot of times what happens is you overshoot the runway. And so pilots overcorrect. They turn the yoke a little too much. And because they do that, they don't like the way the nose pitches down. And so they add opposite rudder pedal. And it gets the airplane into what's called, hold on. it gets the airplane uncoordinated.
Sure.
And when that happens, you're disrupting the airflow over the wings. And then people stall, which the engine doesn't die. It's just airflow over the wings, of course. But when you're landing, you're low, so it's hard to recover from that. And a lot of people pass away during that instance. So we train for that.
That's so crazy. So I've been on a few of those flights out there, just like 30-minute sightseeing flights out there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, every time I've gone out, I mean, I've really had no problems. I've had some cool instructors where they do some like anti-gravity stuff. Like I'll like purposely tell them, I'm like, yeah, when I first did this, the guy was telling me, he's like, hold like a coin in your hand and then just watch it. And then he'd like, love it. Yeah, he would go dive and like, I'm like, ah, and oh my gosh, it's the best. It's like, I don't know, it makes the like your stomach come all the way up in your throat, and you're like, yes. And then whenever it catches, you're just like, ah.
It's like that roller coaster. It's that top, that apex of the roller coaster right before you, because you can see it coming, you know, and you're just like, you're lifted up out of your seat, and you get two options there. You know, you either get that freeing, like, oh, I love this weightlessness, or you're just pure terror.
Yeah. Have you ever gone skydiving as a pilot? I think I asked Brittany this, and she was like, you know, I don't think I would ever jump out of a perfectly good plane. And I was just like,
that's exactly right. I've never done it. And there's two reasons.
Yeah.
One, I'm never going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Yeah, sure.
I don't care if my passengers jump. That's fine. But I'm not. Secondly, I'm scared of heights. So
even though you're a pilot,
I'm not going to jump. Exactly. And actually, it's a common fear amongst pilots. A lot of them are afraid of heights or maybe afraid of falling, but it's pretty common.
Interesting. Yeah, so I've actually done it myself, and
you have jumped out of an airplane?
I have jumped out of an airplane. It was I mean, it was a good time. It was a weird time for sure. Like, it feels like, you know, when you put your arm outside of a window of a car and you're going like 70 miles an hour, it basically feels like that, but like
but everywhere.
Yeah, but everywhere, and it's like super loud, and like no matter what instructions that we had when we were doing it, like like when it's time to pull the chute, I'm gonna like tap you, and then on the third whatever, you're gonna open it up, and I'm like, okay. And then I think like when we got down to the ground, the guy was like, yeah, everything was pretty good, because like we had a logbook that we like logged all the jump information in, and he was like, everything was pretty good, but you know, your legs are kind of just like flapping around, and it seemed like he was kind of like inkling that like I like almost kicked him in the nuts somehow, but didn't at the same time. And so
I feel like that could be a pretty common injury for new jumpers, you know.
Oh yeah, I imagine so. Like he, it was funny because he was such a small dude. Because like I weighed over like the 250 weight limit or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like because I weighed that much, he had to have been smaller than me. And I don't know this, but like I was sitting around in like my jumpsuit kind of waiting and just seeing like, you know, waiting for my turn to go out and do all this other stuff. And I feel like he had been drinking alcohol before the jump. Maybe.
Oh, interesting.
But like at the same time, like because like like one of his friends came by and was like, he said something like where it's like, hey, you've been like drinking, like I don't know the way he said it, but he put it in such a way I was like, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Thank you for that.
Oh wow. Yeah, that doesn't seem legal and or safe.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound legal or safe at all, but I still did it, and I survived to tell the tale. And I mean,
and it's a good story now. Yeah, I
yeah,
jumped with it.
yeah, it makes for a good story. But so like I actually booked for my second like jump to go again,
Yeah.
and I end up never like going to do my second jump again. So I still have like a second jump that I can go do in Dallas. So actually, if you I can transfer it, and I can transfer it to you. So if you want to do it, then just let me know, and then
If I ever get the courage and I
go
think
down
of
to
you
Dallas.
and I'm in Dallas, I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's funny. So what like I guess other than the smaller aircrafts that you're training in, because you trained at ISU, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
You went to school at ISU, right? To be
I did. Yeah. I was there for 4 years. Yeah.
So this is a question I've always had for like aviation majors there. What does like a aviation degree do for you that like you couldn't really do just getting getting a pilot's license?
Mm-hmm. Well, the short answer is absolutely nothing. You could go to your local airport, learn to fly there, build up all the needed time, and go fly for an airline. And you would know the exact same information that I know. And so getting an aviation degree isn't always the best option. In fact, a lot of people will say, don't go for aviation, go for business or criminology or some other degree, and then fly on the side. That way you have a backup when, stuff like what's happening right now is happening.
Like pandemic.
Exactly. So you have some sort of backup in case your airline furloughs or in case your corporate job shuts down, whatever it is.
Sure. Interesting. So have you had like problems with furlough here lately? Because I think Brittany, she's only flying like 25% of what she's supposed to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If that sounds about right.
Our company is we have not furloughed, and our union and our company came together with an agreement saying that we weren't going to furlough up until March 31st of 2021. So it saves jobs. People still fly. They still keep their benefits and all their medical stuff as well, which is ideal. But for some people, it doesn't. They would rather not fly and work somewhere else, I guess. So
interesting.
We haven't come across that because we've come to that agreement. But most airlines are in talks of some sort. They're constantly communicating, trying to find ways to mitigate the furlough. So,
gotcha. So right before the podcast, I pulled up this like surprising facts or like fun facts for like aviation and pilots. And I want you to tell me if these are real and like just like what the truth is or like what you feel about them.
Okay.
All right. So the very first thing was pilots eat different meals than everyone else. Is that true?
It is a thing that we are not supposed to eat the same meals as the rest of the crew members. So if me and my first officer, if there happens to be, let's say we're going to the airport to grab food at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
If I get a sandwich and he gets the same thing and I get food poisoning, we both have food poisoning. The odds are.
Oh.
And so what they do is they have that rule so that we don't become incapacitated at the same time while flying hundreds of people.
Oh, that makes sense.
But truthfully, does that usually happen? No.
That's funny.
We eat the same food.
Gotcha. All right. So I don't know if this one's really surprising, but a Boeing 747 is made up of 6 million parts. And aren't they retiring the 747? Is that right?
Yeah, the only airlines that are flying 747s right now are mostly cargo airlines. So UPS,
Oh.
Atlas, and a few others. But yeah, so you said 6 million?
Yeah, 6 million parts. I mean, I believe it easily, to be
I
honest.
feel like that's low.
Really?
I feel like it's low because those planes are just massive. Now, if we're talking parts, like we include rivets and screws, and are they
Yeah.
including all that? Because
Hey, man, I'm on beattraining.com or no, BAA training.com, whatever that is. Yeah. So
6 million. I mean, I guess that sounds right.
do
I
you
would
think
say
there's
it's
more?
low.
Do you think there's more parts in a car than a seven?
No,
Like, do you think
no.
there's more parts in like maybe? Well, I don't know what you're considering parts versus like components. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah.
maybe I like. There's no way it includes like all the sub assemblies of like screw rivet or whatever. Maybe it's like more comprehensive than just that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely could be.
Gotcha. All right, so this is actually a pretty big one, and this is something Brittany brought up when I first talked to her, and I hate that it's a lie now, and now it like kind of makes me a little bit more afraid. But the third thing is more than 80% of the population is afraid of flying. What do you think that's accurate?
80% of the population, man.
Yeah, so like my grandma, she's never been on a plane. She will refuse to go on any plane ever, and that's just not gonna happen.
I want to say that is mostly true. And the only reason I know this or think that is because if I go to a friend's house, or if I go to a church, or if I go to a party or wherever, and then these people know that I'm a pilot, they always ask me about turbulence and what happens if the engine fails and what about this and what about that. And I'm like,
Sure.
you got to explain yourself and you got to reassure them that it's not going to happen. So I believe I think mostly 80% is probably accurate. It might be a little high, but
Yeah. So what I was talking about earlier about turbulence, I don't know if Brittany told me directly, but she put it on her TikTok, and it was like I always heard that planes are not a single plane has ever gone down because of turbulence, and then I heard like her stat that she said on TikTok, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" That I was living my life by that. I flew all the way to Australia, and like towards the end of the flight, turbulence got so bad where there was women like gasping because there was like a fair amount of turbulence.
yeah.
And so is that true? Like, have planes gone down because of turbulence or no?
I there's always the exception, but in my personal experience, I do not know that would be true. I always tell people this. It's like pilots are people just like passengers.
Yeah.
We do not like the turbulence as well. So we'll climb to a different altitude. We'll descend to a different altitude. We'll slow the airplane down. We'll go faster, depending on where we're at.
Sure.
But we hate it just as much as the people in the back. So we try to avoid it.
Is turbulence like worse at the back of the plane or the front of the plane?
Oh yeah, it's just like sitting in the back of a roller coaster. The back of that roller coaster will jerk you around every single turn. So the back of the plane, I mean, it is a lot more bumpy back there. People get rocked a little more.
Okay, because I mean, I've never been first class or anything, but
Oh, you're missing out.
Yeah, so I'm missing out. Man, I actually got bumped up to like business class one time when I was going to Alaska, and ended up sitting by these like two sweet like old ladies that were like ridiculously nice. But that was like my only time in a class that was not economy. But then so let's see, 80% of the world is afraid of flying, but then only 5% of the world's population has ever been on an airplane.
No way.
5%. Do you want me to read the whole dealio to you?
Sure.
All right. Though the aviation sector is growing rapidly, according to the statistics, only 5% of the world's population has ever flown on an airplane. Many people, especially from underdeveloped regions, have never even been in an aircraft, and it is not likely that they will have an opportunity to fly in all of their lives. However, at the same time, a small minority of the world's population fly very regularly. And that comes to you from BAAtraining.com.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, where are airports located? Airports are located in metropolitan areas, major cities, major, even like hotspots for countries, so it makes sense. Yeah. I think in the U.S. we have access to aviation pretty freely and frequently. Like you said, I can go down the road and go to Sky King and just hop in a plane.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that's even an option. Like I only found out that it was an option that you can go do like a 30-minute flight around Terre Haute, because one of the girls that I was dating at the time, her dad was he ended up getting his private pilot's license, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And he actually paid for like my first flight, and like we went over like all the little like trainings and like everything with the airplane, the like pre-flight inspection, and then showed me the controls and different stuff, and then let me fly it for a little bit while we were up in the air and all that good stuff. And then I took that knowledge and I was like, this would be a cool like little date thing to go do, and so that's what I did. I took people out like on a date, like, hey, let's go do this, and it'd be fun because I would sit in the back of the airplane, and then the girl would sit in the front, and then I would like ask the pilot beforehand. I'm like, "Hey, are you gonna like let him fly it for like a few minutes or whatever?" And like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you want to do. Like this is a flight for you guys. It's like super cool." Mm-hmm. And so it was always just like a good little time, just 30 minutes, go up, do your thing, get out, and yeah. So most people think like you can only go to like Indianapolis or like Atlanta or wherever else. Chicago. You can only fly out of those like big major cities. Like there's not really like I guess commercial flights that would be. Is that right? Like if you can take because no one can really take a flight out of Terre Haute unless you have like your own plane or your like, because my mom, she actually flew into Terre Haute when she moved to Terre Haute. So she flew from like California to Chicago, then took a plane from Chicago to Terre Haute, but that's not even an option anymore.
Yeah, that's long ago. It would have been an option, but they don't do that anymore. The only times that you get to fly into smaller non-metro airports like Terre Haute would be if you chartered an airplane. Yeah. So sometimes basketball teams will fly into Terre Haute on a chartered aircraft to
fuel up.
Either they'll fuel up. A lot of times military guys fly into Terre Haute because they had the guard base out there. Yeah. And so they have like a fuel contract with the airport, and so they get fuel a little cheaper, I guess. But it's not really known by the general public that, hey, if I want to go fly, I could. Yeah. I think people just get nervous about it, and maybe 80% of those people are nervous to go fly.
Yeah, I mean, what I didn't realize that if you just want to do like a sightseeing thing, it was only like $100 for 30 minutes. Yeah. I mean, and if you do two people, it's $50 per person. And to me, like being able to see like maybe the city that you live in or like the area that you live in a little better than you would have normally, then
Hmm.
like $50 is like completely worth it. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, I
not
don't
bad
know
at
why you
all.
wouldn't. So yeah, that was. Oh, the last time I was out there at Terre Haute Regional, I actually I saw a prisoner plane. I,
Oh yeah, Con Air.
have, have you have you ever watched that movie?
I have not. I've not, but we just call it that because, you know.
Because of the movie. Oh my gosh, I thought of all the Nicolas Cage
It's
things
Nicolas
right at
Cage,
that
right?
movie. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Nicolas
yeah.
Cage.
Maybe I have seen it. It's just been a while.
Been a while. You know that song
Yes, I
by
know that song.
Stained? Everyone thinks it's Nickelback. It makes me so sad. Kind of makes me mad. It's not Nickelback. It's Stained. They don't make all bad music, and like me personally, I like Nickelback, and a lot of people are like, what, really?
Yeah, Nickelback gets a lot of hate, but they've got some good songs.
for, for sure. Uh, but apparently the Con Air flight or whatever, it comes out there pretty regularly for like the federal prison out there. Like,
Yeah.
have you had any run-ins with that? Also for like
Um.
basketball teams, are you talking about like professional basketball teams flying to Terre Haute?
Oh no, it'd be collegiate basketball teams. So like
Oh, okay,
if we're playing like um, Drake or something, I don't
really?
know, someone in our conference that's like states away, they're not gonna take a bus that's in a 14-hour drive because they got to get back for classes. So
Yeah,
they,
I'd imagine like well, North Dakota State is not in our basketball conference. I think Iowa, what is that? University of Iowa is in. No,
mm,
I no, it's not Iowa State. I think it's University of Northern Iowa. That's what it is. They're not. And I think that might be our
I don't know.
furthest opponent.
Yeah, that might be right.
So
But those guys, maybe they'll fly in. But as it goes for Con Air, when when those planes come in, it's an unmarked airplane, completely white. They'll just park on the ramp, and then you'll have police, unmarked security guys. They will patrol the airplane. They're
yeah,
carrying weapons, and I mean it's an ordeal. And then they'll this whole convoy of buses and police cars, they all come out onto the ramp.
yeah,
They line up in front of the airplane, and then they'll pull up the air stairs for the passengers to get off, and they'll
sure.
just walk out single file. Or sometimes there's only one,
Just
but
one person on the whole flight.
well,
I feel like that's a
they're
really expensive flight.
they're high profile.
Oh,
Yeah, so if you remember the Boston bomber,
yep. He's in
so
Terre Haute, isn't he?
yeah, so he was they actually did a test flight. So they brought in an empty airplane and leaked out that the Boston bomber was going to be on the plane, and so they just tested to see what the public would do and how they would react. And so they flew in a single plane
Wow.
with no one on it, and then just to see what would happen. And then they brought the actual plane in a couple weeks later.
Really?
Yeah,
I
but most of the time they shut down the ramp. Nobody really gets to move, and if you get too close, I mean, they're looking at you.
Wow. Yeah, I never even heard about them doing that at all. Like, wow, that's crazy. Have well, when you were doing training, because you don't really fly out of Terre Haute, really. You
Not
do,
anymore. Now I haven't been out there in probably 3 years, I'm guessing.
yeah. Last time I took a flight out there, the guy that was flying me, I can't remember his name. Super cool dude. He was fairly young, um, but he was like my friend asked, "Do you get any like famous people that ever like come out here?" And then I was like, "There's no way." And then he was like, "Yeah, we've had like some country star. He stopped and like
Blake Shelton.
yeah, that's who it was. Yeah,
Yeah, so Blake Shelton came out to the airport. Kristi was actually working at the airport at that time, and
yeah,
so this chartered plane flew in for fuel. It was just a quick turn, meaning they're just going to stop, get fuel, go to the bathroom, and leave.
yeah.
And so This guy, long black hair, just walks into the airport, goes into the bathroom,
Yeah.
and Kristi goes, is that Blake Shelton? And she didn't get his autograph or anything, but she did give him a Tootsie Roll. They had little candies at the desk. And would you like a Tootsie Roll?
Hey, is Kristi still right next to you?
Yeah, she is.
Hey, give the microphone to her and let her tell her little experience. I'd be curious to see how she reacts to it.
Here. Exactly.
Welcome to the podcast, Kristi
Hey,
Adams, wife of Jordan. All right, tell me about your Tootsie Roll time with Blake Shelton.
So he walked into the bathroom and I was like, is that Blake Shelton? And I didn't ask the pilot that, but he handed me his credit card and I noticed the company on the credit card sounded really familiar. So I acted like I was, this is going to be really bad. I acted like I was running the credit card, but I decided to Google the company name and found out that it was actually Blake Shelton's company name. And I was like, no way, that really is Blake Shelton. Like, I'm not just making this up. And so I asked the pilot if I could get a picture with him, and he said, I don't know, we'll see if he will let you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, no big deal. And so then he came out of the bathroom, and I said, hey, would you like a Tootsie Roll? And he just like laughed at me and said, no, thank you. And I think the pilot had sent him a text message like, hey, she knows who you are or something. I don't know. Like, I could be making that up. But he like bolted back out to his airplane and they immediately left as soon as I rang up their card. So
So I think I remember a time, this is kind of pivoting. You're obsessed with Trump's airplane?
Oh yeah. It was so cool. That was like the award that I won for student ministry. Was like most likely to hijack Trump's airplane.
So I've actually, so when Trump came to Terre Haute, I went to the rally just to go see what it was about, and I like barely got into there, but like I only got into like the waiting area. I didn't get into the auditorium at Indiana Theater. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then I ended up leaving early because I was like, this is stupid. I can't even see him. I can only hear him. And so it's like, what's the point of even really being here? So we left, and I was like, I guarantee you he flew into Terre Haute Regional. Guarantee you. And so me and my friend, we got out, and then we drove down to Terre Haute Regional, and sure enough, there was his plane, Trump, and it was like obviously like massive, especially just for one person, and it was like fairly impressive, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And like I took a bunch of pictures and whatnot, and he came through probably 10-20 minutes after that, and then got on, waved, and then was out. So
yeah, they wouldn't let any of the employees on the ramp. Only our owner was on the ramp, and then they had all the like I guess CIA agent or special agents, whatever, that were like completely around the airplane, blocking him in, and then they had all of his security guards blocking him, so we couldn't even see him. Like I think I saw his hair, but I wasn't even allowed to open the door. Like as soon as I opened the door, they were like, whoa, shut the door. And I was like, so sorry.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was
so
very
crazy.
And I was working at the time, so it was very secretive, and there were a lot of people there that I had to try to keep out of the FBO, and it was just crazy. But.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I ended up going to that Trump rally, didn't see him, then left, and then I went to what's his name? He ran in 2016 on the Republican ticket. He went to Woodrow Wilson for his little dealio. What's his name? He's a senator from Texas.
Senator from Texas. Who was that?
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz. Yeah, I went to the Ted Cruz one. And the Secret Service detail that he had was not even remotely similar to what Trump had. So Ted Cruz came like probably a few weeks or a month before Trump came. And I went to that. There was like metal detectors, but like it was like so lax that like I actually end up getting up on stage, like on the risers behind Ted Cruz, because I had some actually. Do you know? I'm not gonna say their names, but I'll ask you later. And but well, actually, I know that you know them. But anyways, they're like, I was like, how'd you guys get on stage? They're like, this, that, and the other, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. She's like, you want to come up on the stage with us? I was like, sure, yeah, why not? It'll be a good time. And so I ended up getting up on stage with Ted Cruz, his wife, and his kids. And I was actually in the Tribune Star newspaper. You can actually like see me on the front page, like standing behind Ted Cruz. It's absolutely the best. And then for the Trump one, it was like high security detail, multiple like levels of security that you're going through, and like the line was much longer. The auditorium that he was in was much bigger, and it was right before like the Indiana primary, the one that like would decide who or not the primary, or yeah, it was the primary, who it would decide, like essentially it came down to like more or less if Trump or Cruz won Indiana, then essentially they would get the nomination for the like Republican nominee or whatever.
And they both came to Vigo County because Vigo County has chosen the winner for several years, right?
I think like 100 years or something like that.
Yeah, it was something crazy. But I don't know if we did this year. I can't remember. Or not this year.
We Vigo County ended up like voting for Trump, so the tradition continued. I think actually on CBS or NBC they did like a small little thing about Terre Haute, and they actually said that on like national TV, and so they were kind of like looking at Terre Haute as like, all right, whoever wins Terre Haute wins the nation. So yeah. Anyway, that was our off topic with Kristi. You can go ahead and give back to Jordan. Oh goodness, man,
that was fun.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I like sometimes I swear I'm like the dumbest person, and I just try to get into anything I can try to get into possibly, and if I can't, then I'll like try to figure out some other way or something. It's like people who know me, like they're just like, why is he doing that? How did he even get up there? And I'm just like, I don't know how I got here. I don't know. I wish I did, but I don't. But I'm here, and this is it's so much fun. But yeah, I love it. It's so much fun. So one of the things I asked you before the podcast, I guess, what is like, have you ever had like an uh-oh moment, or where like you were like really afraid that like you might have made an error that was like critical, or is there like a crazy story that you could like share?
So the way flying goes, especially when you upgrade to captain of an airplane, they always say that your first 100 hours is where you learn the most, the good and the bad, what you did right, what you did wrong.
Yeah.
My very first day as captain, very first day, we are flying from Newark, New Jersey to Raleigh, Durham.
Okay, yeah.
We land in Raleigh. Everybody deplanes. We're ready for our next flight. We board all up. We're flying from Raleigh to Houston. And so there's a little bit of weather in between us. I'm the pilot flying. My first officer, my co-pilot, is a brand new guy who has the required FAA experience, but he has maybe 100 hours in this type of airplane that we're flying. And so
wow,
he's brand new. Anyways, so I'm a new captain. He's a new first officer. We take off, and I have the flight attendants call me. They're like, hey, we have a passenger that might be getting sick. I'm like, all right, well, just keep me posted. So we continue our climb. We get up to altitude, and we have intercom system that we can talk to the flight attendants with, and they hit our emergency button.
Wow.
And the emergency button usually is not a good thing. Sometimes it's an accident, like, oh, I didn't mean to push that button, but it always sends that adrenaline rush and that heart, that stomach sink, that like, oh, what is it now?
Oh my goodness.
And so we get up to Cruz and they say, hey, we just had a passenger stand up to go to the bathroom. They passed out and hit their head on the seat and they are unconscious.
No. Oh no.
Literally my first day as captain.
Wow.
Right? So they give me all the information. Me and the co-pilot discuss our actions that we're going to take, and we decide that we're going to call the medical doctors, because we can get a phone call through our radio system and talk to doctors on the ground about what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, the options that we have here are: do we return to Raleigh, where we just left, and let these paramedics take care of her there? Is it severe enough that we have to do that, but we can't because we're too heavy? We have a lot of fuel. We're fueled for like a 2-hour flight,
Yeah.
And so all of this is happening, and it's so stressful. And it took about 30 minutes to get everything ironed out, where the doctor decided that it was a form of, like she just got vertigo is what it's called. So she had some form of vertigo. She got dizzy and she fell over, passed out.
Yeah.
So they said, just monitor her vitals, give her some drink and some food, and you should continue to Houston. It's like, okay. And so during that whole process, like, I'm thinking, did I make the right choice in continuing to Houston, or should I have returned to Raleigh?
Wow.
As a brand new captain, it's always hard to make that choice. But in the end, we're about being safe. And so as long as her vitals were fine and she was conscious again, then we're okay. 20 minutes into this whole incident, a lady was like, I'm a nurse. And so even though we asked for help in the beginning, we're like, is there any medical professionals on board? No one answered.
Of course.
And so we're dealing with all this. And then finally she's like, I'm a nurse, I can help. And it's like, well, thank you for helping now.
Just as everything's like calmed down.
Yeah, now everything's almost over, but you can at least help us monitor her. So that was probably like my craziest incident that I just remember in the back of my head.
Sure. Yeah, I couldn't imagine your very first day. I imagine when you got to the ground, you were like, just.
Oh, yes. And there's forms you got to fill out. Like I'm sitting there, and I'm like, great. I've got to do this. I have to submit this. I have to call this. And so there's just so much that you have to do. And as a new captain, it was pretty overwhelming. So,
wow.
But we got it done.
Wow, that's crazy. So like, how long are you, like, give me like a typical work day for you. So like,
okay.
I don't know what the longest flight is that you fly. Obviously you're going to say what's like the longest flight that you fly. But like, are you doing like a lot of overnights, or are you just flying to places and coming back? Or just kind of give it a rundown of like when you leave the house and then when you get back home, like just a typical work day like that, yeah. I guess.
So at my company, our schedules can vary anywhere from just a day trip, which would be, an out and back, to 5 days long.
Sure.
So this next trip that I have that leaves tomorrow is a 5-day trip. So I will do 2 legs tomorrow, and me and my first officer will switch back and forth between legs. So I'll do the first one, he does the second one.
Yeah.
And then we overnight. So sometimes you just do 1 leg a day. Most times you do a minimum of 2 legs a day. Other days you do 4 legs, and those are your long days, The longest flight that we do, it's actually one of my favorite flights because for the legality reasons of pilots, if you ever get stuck on an airport tarmac and they're like, the pilot's timed out.
Oh, that's happened to me before, and I don't
When
even want to get started about it.
it's super unfortunate for everyone, but like we do our job, and whenever we time out, like we can't do it. Basically,
Do you time out at like 10 hours?
no, it's actually 16 hours is the max.
Wow.
So
That seems like that still seems like it's like way too much.
imagine like my day. So I start at, let's say, 7 a.m. 7 o'clock show time. That means we'll leave the airport at about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
For me, it's an hour drive to the airport. So I have to leave by 6, which means I get up at 5.
Yeah.
So my day started at 5 a.m., but my timing of the FAA, my duty, as they say, only starts from when I show up to the airport.
Wow.
So at 7 o'clock, but I've already been up for 2 hours. So I could, in theory, have an 18-hour day and just be completely wiped, Wow. So there's reasons why they do the safety stuff. But our longest flight that we do, and it's probably one of my favorite flights, is from Miami to Minneapolis.
Why that flight?
Well, a couple reasons. So it's a 4-hour flight. Usually we're full. Usually there are meals on those flights.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's a plus. But I like doing that flight purely because you have the contrast. Last winter I did it and I was in Miami. It was 85 degrees. And I went to Minneapolis and it was negative 18. So tell me, how am I supposed to pack a trip for 85-degree swimwear weather to Eskimo, negative 18?
That's amazing.
It's so drastic, the change. But I of course I also like going to the Mall of America. So that's
I've never been to it. I think at one point in time, or it may still have, but I think has a roller coaster in there. Is that right?
Oh yeah, they have an entire theme park in the middle of the mall.
Wow. Yeah.
Water slides and roller coasters, all sorts of stuff.
What an interesting thing to do. Like you're literally going from warm 85 to cold negative temperatures. Like it gets cold in Minnesota.
It gets real cold. Yeah.
Man, that is so crazy.
I really like that flight. It's really we do 2 legs those days when we have real long flights like that.
Yeah.
Due to legality reasons, you can only fly so much, and so that one leg takes up over half of it. So you can't fly much more than maybe one other leg, you know?
So one of the biggest questions I've always had for like a pilot is like how are you maintaining like a good like I know you don't have any kids, but you got 2 huskies.
And, we got
but you like I imagine it gets very difficult, especially if you're driving an hour to the airport and an hour back home, and some days you're doing like a 5-day trip like you're doing now. I feel like well, Brittany was telling me, she's like, for her it was like really good because after like 5 days she kind of gets like sick of her husband or whatever. and then she's like, okay, it's time to go. All right, well, and then she like goes and does her thing, and then comes back, and then she'll have some time together and whatnot. But like, how does that work out for more? If that's too personal, just like we can go on to something else. But I'm just like curious how that works.
So I'm gone for 5 days, and my goal is to get back home. Like you hear a lot of pilots say, my goal is to get paid more and fly less. And it's super accurate. Like,
yeah, sure.
I would rather be home than out flying, even though I love flying and it's my job, but I enjoy being home, so just having that 5-day schedule. Sometimes we wake up really early. Sometimes we wake up later in the day. Like we may start at 4 a.m. or we may start at 6 p.m. and it varies. And so when I get home, it's like that first day, don't talk to me. It's like I'm just gonna sit on the couch. I'm gonna drink some coffee.
Yeah.
Maybe play on my Switch a little bit and
Hey.
just chill, because
Yeah,
my
I get
brain
you.
is mush. So
Okay, so actually, I've had this question for you for a long time. So I was, I wonder if you remember because I'm very certain it was you. So I went to Toys R Us and I was standing outside in line, and I was standing outside for a NES Classic, I think. Did you go to Toys R Us like early in the morning, like in around winter time for a NES or SNES Classic? Is that true? Then it was you. It was you. I was like, I think that's him, but I'm not gonna say anything because I don't know him that well. So I was just like kind of leaving it alone.
Yeah, my buddy and I we went and got them. We had he bought one, I got one. I was like, this is great.
Yeah. So like those things, I love those things because like you don't need like the original like big one. You don't have to have any games. It's all preloaded and like with the SNES. Star Fox 2 came out on it and like it had never been released before, so that was really cool to have. But yeah, that's so funny that it was you.
That I didn't even know. That's funny.
Gotcha. The reason is like because I was literally it was me and my girlfriend at the time. We were the very first two people in line, and I remember you came up and looked at the sign to see how like what the quantity was that they had. You like came up, looked at it, and you were like, yeah, okay. And then you went and walked in line.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And then I was like, that was really funny.
I haven't played it though in a minute. You mentioned we got two Huskies, and they can be kind of terrors sometimes.
I
but
can only imagine.
One of them chewed up our controllers for the SNES, and I'm like,
do you know how hard it is to get a controller for that, like a replacement one?
I'm saying. So like, if I want to play, then I either gotta go to eBay and buy one or find some other used one. But I am out of a controller right now.
Oh my gosh,
it happens.
That sucks. So this is not aviation or technology, but this is like I didn't know you when you were going through this. You might still be doing it, but like you've lost so much weight.
Yeah.
Like I am so happy for you, and that is so insane. How much weight did you lose?
So we can make this aviation related because it plays a factor for sure.
Really?
But I've lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
So far. And my goal for the last year was to maintain that because it's always been an issue of losing the weight wasn't the issue. It was maintaining.
Sure.
So I would lose it, gain it back, lose it, gain it back.
Yeah.
But, so being in aviation, our job is super sedentary. Think about it. We get up to the cockpit, we do our pre-flight checks, and then we fly for 4 hours sitting.
Wow. Yeah.
And then we get to the airport, we do the pre-flight checks, and we fly 4 hours back. So we're sitting for 8 hours a day in the airplane doing nothing, not physical at least. We're not exercising. And then we get to the hotel. It's 10 o'clock at night. Now we're tired. We go to bed. We wake up.
Wow.
And, we grab whatever food we can because honestly, right now, food's kind of hard to come by past 10 o'clock. So you may have to order Uber Eats and get McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever.
Delivered to the airport?
Or to our hotel whenever we get,
okay. Gotcha.
get out there. So it becomes this like just a habit of convenience to go, I'll just run inside real quick and I'll grab a bag of chips, or I'll just run inside and I'll grab some Chick-fil-A. And so you just eat all this junk food all day and you gain all this weight because you're not doing anything.
Wow.
And I decided to start exercising and lost 50 pounds in the process. So
wow, I'd imagine because I'm I'm not a skinny little dude myself. I mean, because I imagine, like, I don't know Brittany though. I don't know how Brittany eats, but she is so tiny. Like, how does she do it? And like, how does she do the same job as you, eat the same food as you, basically, and not gain?
I have no idea. It's kind of, it makes me angry. You know, it's like, how come she can do that, but here I am.
Yeah, like suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I know. Let's see, the guy who I was talking about that got his private pilot's license. If he wanted to get back into it, he would have to go to a doctor and get like like all these different tests just to get like even just to like recertify for his pilot's license.
So you have to go back and get that. In the airline world, you have to do it every year or every 6 months, depending on your age.
Yeah.
And then if you're general aviation, you have to do it. I think it's every 5 years. Is there?
That sounds about right.
So, but they check everything. They check your flexibility. They check your dexterity, your hearing, your eyesight. Wow. They do a urine test.
Make sure you're not on drugs.
The colorblind test is not the hardest, but they trick you. Some of the things you just got to trace it with your finger, you know. And so,
gotcha.
Point A to point B, follow the line. You're like, there's nothing there, and they're like, oh, good, that was a trick. It's like, thanks, I guess. Anyways,
that's funny.
Yeah, they test a bunch of stuff, and we have to pay for it.
Wow.
Because it's a medical exam, so you know, whatever. Some places it costs $100. Some places it costs $300.
Wow.
And if you got to do that every year, you know, kind of gets pricey.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely adds up for sure. Well, Jordan, that was all the questions I had for you. And we're right about an hour. We're like 3 minutes from an hour. So I've actually had some problems with the video. Like kind of messed up a little bit in the beginning. But I'm still going to publish the video because I'm still like super proud that I got this to work basically like the way I wanted it to. And I think it's going to come out pretty well. Congratulations on losing all that weight and maintaining that and, you know, keeping it off. That is like, that's a big deal. Like 50 pounds is nothing to shake massive, a stick at. And then, do you have anything you want to say or any final remarks?
You know, right now the aviation industry is kind of struggling, and I know that people are scared to travel. But we're taking extra precautions. We're cleaning in between flights. Everybody has to wear a mask in between while flying. We hand out hand sanitizer and sanitizing wipes, and we're all doing our part to make sure that traveling is safe. And so go fly, go travel, go do your stuff because we want you to fly with us.
You know, Jordan, I couldn't have put it better myself. Very eloquent. And if that doesn't get people to go fly, I don't know what does. Jordan Adams.
Well, let's hope so.
There it was.
Thank you.